Right now, really excited for this. We got to the fan hotline presented by Sullivan Super Service, Pittsburgh's trusted plumbing and HVAC provider for over 50 years. That is where we find former Pirates play-by-play man, current Dodgers play-by-play man, Tim Neverett. He joins us here on Sports Radio 93.7 The Fan. Tim, thanks for joining tonight. How are things out in sunny Los Angeles?
They're a little cooler than they are here in the Berg, I'll tell you.
Cooler out there.
Yeah, the weather's been pretty nice out there, but it's warmer here. It's beautiful. Like, what a great evening we have here. It's amazing.
It's going to be, I think the high is 89 tomorrow is what my weather says here. So you're going to be in for a steamy one tomorrow out here.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me. As long as I'm in the Berg. I miss coming here. I do come here several times a year anyway, but I do miss it here and the people here, and it's just such a great town. I don't care if it's 89 or 95.
Tim, you are a part of a very important time in Pirates baseball, not only for me, but I'm sure for a whole generation and multiple generations of Pirates fans out there, because you were with the team during some of those magical runs about a decade ago. And before we get into a little preview of what the Dodgers have to offer, I do want to let you reflect on those times here and how fun that was to be the voice of a team that got back to the postseason after so many years of heartbreak.
You know, it was amazingly fun, and it was I think back on it fondly a lot, and some of my friends, they get sick of me talking about how good it was here because I talk about it quite a bit and I'm asked about it a lot too. Because I got to tell you, there's nothing like Pittsburgh baseball when the Pirates are winning. The Pirates certainly have some things to be excited about now with Paul Skeens and Jared Jones and things like that. But, back then it was a little different because, at the trading deadline, going after, legit players that were going to help the ball club, getting players like Justin Morneau at the time, who I think the next year after would go on to win a batting title with Colorado. Derek Lee late in his career, people like that. I mean, they went out and got some legitimate players that helped us down the stretch and had legitimate players. I mean, A.J. Burnett was a solid pitcher here. Certainly there were other really good pitchers. We saw the emergence of Garrett Cole. Russell Martin behind the plate was, an amazing addition here. And I was back with Russ with the Dodgers his last year playing, and he and I would talk privately about our time in Pittsburgh together. And he really, really loved it, especially October 1st, 2013. He remembers that pretty fondly. There's just so much to talk about with that. I mean, we could go on and on. And I have in the past. I've had a lot of people in the past from Pittsburgh when I've been here talk to me about this, and I never get tired of talking about that time with the Pirates. It was really, really special. It was an honor for me, and I look back on it as one of the best times of my career.
Yeah, Tim, I mean, and you said it there in the midst of that answer, how there's nothing like Pirates baseball whenever this team is winning. I mean, the cynics in town will argue that Pittsburgh is not a baseball town, but I mean, all you needed to see, if you weren't around in the early 90s, all you really needed to see was definitely that wild card game in 2013. I mean, that is still a game that people talk about like the greatest experience of their lives. We're going to be talking about that around here until the year 2113, if people are still around for it. I mean, for the rest of time, that game will be talked about.
Yeah, it was crazy. It really was. To see the passion that the fans brought, to see the first ever real blackout. I know they've called for blackout since, but there's been nothing like that one. I mean, they were hanging off the Clemente Bridge. The traffic, we're pretty high up in the press box there, and the boat traffic on the Allegheny was incredible. I've never seen anything like it before or since. The buzz. I remember just being on Federal Street before the game. I actually wanted to go out there myself. I wanted to take a walk out there and just experience it and understand it and feel the passion and the buzz all afternoon and all early evening. I mean, I don't know if I've experienced much like that in the past. I think, when I was in Boston and we won the World Series there, going through that was pretty special too. And there was always a buzz there in the postseason, but there was always something a little extra special about that time in Pittsburgh, especially that night of the first wild card game, and winning that too. And one of the things I remember, Donnie, is going on to play in the next series against the Cardinals and having the Cardinals on the ropes. And Charlie Morton was pitching against Michael Wacha in Game 4. And Charlie was pitching great at the time, and Charlie pitched an amazing game that night. But Michael Wacha pitched probably the best game that he's ever pitched in his life before or since. And it was a real pitcher's duel. The Cardinals end up squeaking it out. And then we have to go back to St. Louis and face, peak Adam Wainwright for Game 5. And he hadn't lost a single decision at home all year. And then the decision had to come from Clint Hurdle, if you remember the story, because A.J. Burnett was rested. But A.J.'s, ERA, you could look it up, but it was ERA in St. Louis was 12, right? I mean, he just got pounded every time he was in St. Louis, it seemed. So, I thought they made the right decision in going with Garrett Cole, the rookie, who's hungry. And he pitched great, but the Cardinals just had too much. And, we win that Game 5. We rewrite some history, and we would have gone on to play the Dodgers in the NLCS. But that was a really, really great run. And I thought that was the best season they had, although I think the 2015 team as a whole was probably the best team they had, top to bottom. But I do think that, 13, 14, 15 was great. 14, you run into peak Madison Bumgarner. He was a buzzsaw, and he was just unbeatable that particular night. And then, Brandon Crawford of the Giants hits the grand slam in the fourth inning. I remember doing the middle innings on radio, and Brownie had just got up after the third. Steve Blass was with us. And so I sit down to the top of the fourth. Bases are loaded. Crawford hits the grand slam over the Clemente wall. And we go, the inning's over, and, Steve Blass, in his usual humor, hits me in the back, and he goes, "Hey, nice going." So I said, "Not my fault, Steve." But we end up losing that one. And then Jake Arrieta, the next year, we hit him at his peak. So, and Jake, was probably good. He was really good in 16 also. I think he had a no-hitter in 16 against the Dodgers. But, it was some great times, great players, great relationships. I mean, and from that time, I still have a bond. We all do. We still have a bond with those players from that era. For example, last year I was in Tampa. I ran into Jeff Karstens. He and I stay in touch. I see Justin Morneau every time we go to Minnesota. That's just a small number of guys. I'm looking forward to seeing Neil Walker and maybe Matt Capps if they're there this week. Players of that era, we always got along really well. And we spent an awful lot of time together, and we're around each other during, probably the most special time since the early 90s in Pirates baseball.